There's a lot of men who are weaponizing vulnerability to trick women into terrible relationships. This guy right here. I know it seems like I'm being hard on this guy. That's the point. That's what he's doing to us is what he's doing to her. Under the language of vulnerability and being honest and talking about his feelings, what he's doing is making us feel like we're way too hard on him, that we should feel sorry for him. And so many men weaponize women's empathy and the amazing ability to give men the benefit of the doubt again and again and again and again until we die. But I want to show you through a lot of examples how this man uses talking about vulnerability and emotion to not only gaslight Stacy in the show Love is Blind, and if you haven't watched it, good for you, please don't. You can't get that time back. But I also want to show how he lies. He's a big old liar, and yet he never seems to get busted in his lies because he's lying by omission, he's lying by deflection, and all kinds of other ways. And yet at the same time, trying to convince her that she knows him so well. She knows him almost better than he knows himself. That she knows him probably better than anyone except probably his mom. And by convincing her that she knows him so well, he can't possibly be tricking her or lying because he's just so honest about who he is. And if she can't accept who he is, who she knows him so well, then she is materialistic, shallow, and lacks the ability to be vulnerable. Like, the man has done such a mind fork on this woman. And she keeps seeing it for what it is, and then she backtracks and starts questioning herself, and she's always apologizing for every single fight. Everything is always her fault. Now, before I go, I am not a huge fan of Stacy. Also, I don't know her. I don't know him. I don't care about them. I am showing you with examples that for all the world to see. They know that on a dating show, and we are going to read into everything. And the information I am given, despite it probably being heavily edited by the producers to create a narrative, right? Like, I know all this. I was on a reality TV show. I know how it works before someone's like, you don't know them. I also worked on the set of reality TV show Who Wants to Work for Diddy as a set dresser. I know how Hollywood works. But given what we've been shown, I am making some points about the way what the dating world is like right now, and people like Izzy, Jonah Hill, Dax, and all kinds of men are pretending to be vulnerable and weaponizing women's endless empathy to make them second guess themselves and put up with unbelievable BS. So I've already covered the whole plates thing, paper plates. The man doesn't have dishes. I promise you he has money to go to the bar, but he can't afford dishes. And he keeps going back to, and he will say this again and again, it was a thought that counted. When she questioned how he could possibly make someone dinner and serve it on a paper plate. It was a thought that counted. What about the thought about the presentation, dude? And then he always goes back to, I didn't have like fancy restaurants and, dinners and stuff. She's not talking about that, bro. You sold yourself as a financially stable man ready to get married. You see what I mean? He literally throws your materialistic and I'm not as rich as you and your daddy in her face all the time. Now, again, I could probably do a whole video on Stacy. Yes, she comes from a lot of privilege. Yes, money is important to her. And also, she wants a good standard of living. I don't know what she does. I'm assuming she's inherited a lot of wealth and generational wealth. But she seems smart. She knows what she wants. And this man sold her what he knew she wanted, but he lied about what he had to offer. And Stacy's biggest problem, which we saw long before she even hooked up with him, she's a cool girl. Now, I can relate to that as a recovering cool girl. I can relate to not talking about my feelings very much, taking care of myself, making my own money, never relying on a man for anything. Although it sounds like she relies on her daddy. But none of the men she's dated doesn't seem to have a great dating past because it sounds like she's got something going on where none of the men have ever assured her that they're not going to leave. And Izzy knows that. And that's why he keeps using these terms like fight for each other. Let's fight for each other. What he means by that is I'm going to do everything I need to do to make sure that you don't leave me because I've never had a family. I come from serious religious trauma from being a former Jehovah's Witness and all kinds of family trauma. And I'm looking for a home. I want someone to love me unconditionally. He says that throughout love me unconditionally. He said those exact words, and then he said other forms of those words like, I want you to love me how I am. And so every time he mentions fight for, he is manipulating. She also doesn't seem to know yet, which a lot of women don't know until it's too late, that butterflies is a huge red flag. That is your nervous system trying to warn you. The excitement of a crush, just like Johnny learned, the other girl he messed with, the excitement of a crush, feeling like a teenager again. Those are not good feelings to have when you're a grown woman. That is exactly the feeling I had right before my life was almost ruined and almost ended by a hobosexual with unbelievable amount of trauma that he never dealt with. And I believe Izzy falls in that category. I have empathy for Izzy, but I do not have empathy on men who exploit women and the system of patriarchy that benefits them in order to continue running from their trauma and then further traumatizing more people, especially the women in their lives and any children they may have. He says this so much. I just want someone who will not give up on me. He will fight for me. Even if I literally never do any of the things they ask me to do, like make dinner, Izzy. Stacy just asked you to make her dinner. And he refuses. He's like, why could you just love me for doing nothing? Or why are you giving up on me? Also, this is not a good reason to get married. I've been single for the last 2 years. And in those 2 years, he's dated a lot on the apps. So, okay, he was engaged. And the last relationship, he claims traumatized him so much that he was gaslit all the time. I'm telling you, I think this man actually has gone to therapy, but he's not going to therapy and doing the real work. He's like Jonah Hill, who's using therapy speak to manipulate women. So after 2 years on the apps, it's exhausting. I'm ready to settle down. What? So you were engaged, didn't deal with that, went immediately on the apps, and hooked up with all these girls, and then kept little memorabilia of all these girls in a drawer that you did not throw away so that Stacy could see it, little token of all your little conquests. And now you're so tired of the apps you want to settle down. Do not marry a man because he's tired of dating and wants to settle down, because he's exhausted from having to deal with all these women. This is especially important for women, because what we are understanding now that the fog of like wanting to be a bride and that being the most important day of our life has lifted, we are now understanding that the worst thing that you can do is get married to a man who does not respect you, a man that's going to exploit you, and a man who doesn't love you, which is more common than not, because there's a whole system that is going to be on his side to make sure that he exploits you till the day you die or until you get a divorce. So men who are just ready to settle, yeah, because they're fine marrying women they don't know as long as they get everything they want from that woman. One of the funniest things is that this man who keeps shoes on his bed, who doesn't own plates, claims to be more emotionally stable than any of the older men that Stacy has dated. This man who did this when the other girl he was dating opened up about her biggest regrets in dating. He's like, no. The man who ran and hid in a closet and cried when Stacy called him out on the fact that he's doing nothing to impress her, that he's not fulfilling any of his promises of, God, I hope y'all can hear me. There are men yelling outside my window and promises of making dinner. That was the most important thing she asked for, and he would not do it. He asked him if I'm going to go break down some of these fights in terms of like how he gaslit her every time. I don't have time in this video. This is more of like a recap. He said he's going to rub her feet. He said he's all this stuff. She was like, look, I'm tired when I come home from work. I'm doing all these things and you're not doing anything. He basically said, well, I'm putting up with you, adapting to you. And she was like, but what are you doing? And he ran into a closet and cried. And then basically threatened leaving. It's always something. I'm never good enough for you and I'm over it. He's threatening leaving her right now. Okay, you're a fighter, bro. Okay. Like, this is what he does every time. Every time he gets called on his crap, he flips the question on her. If that doesn't work, he uses, like, he'll be like, vulnerability, emotions, blah. And if that doesn't work, he does some way to make it so that she's the one chasing after him and apologizing. And whenever he gets caught in a lie, he goes back to the thing he won her over with. I don't think I've ever had a girl who likes me like you do and understands me the way you do, even though he's literally lying about everything. And he sold himself as being the vulnerable, emotionally honest one, and that she's not. When really, he only talks about his feelings to manipulate her or get away with lying. Comment for part 2.